This is instruction for problem number 6. You've calculated that this is the correct ratio of grams. What that really means is that each of the magnesium ions will then have 2 hydroxides to bind to it to make this precipitate. That's what these numbers mean. That's what balancing the equation does and using the molar masses. So if you use 120 grams of magnesium sulfate and 80 grams of sodium hydroxide, it'll be perfect. Every magnesium will find its match. All the magnesium will precipitate. Now imagine what would happen if you added extra sodium hydroxide, more than 80 grams say. That would provide additional hydroxide ions. The hydroxide would still bind to the magnesium in a 2-to-1 ratio, but there would then be some leftover hydroxides. This would be called an excess reagent. You only needed 80 grams. If you put more than that, there'll be leftover hydroxides. The magnesium in this case would be called the limiting reagent. You have enough hydroxide to make another precipitate, but the magnesium is limiting. The actual question number 6 says, what happens if you use less hydroxide? Half as much as you're supposed to. So this is the correct ratio here. What would happen if you didn't have enough hydroxide? I'm hoping you see 2 possibilities. Maybe each magnesium gets 1 hydroxide ion. This has logic to it. However, it's not what really happens. Magnesium ion will bind 2 hydroxides, not 1. MgOH. 1 of each? That doesn't exist. So what will happen in this situation is that 1 magnesium will get all the hydroxides. The other magnesium will be excess. It doesn't have any partners. This forms a precipitate. This does not. So in this situation, hydroxide is limiting. We don't have enough to precipitate all the magnesium. In the original equation, you saw 120 grams reacts with 80 grams to form 58 grams of precipitate. If you use 120 grams of magnesium sulfate and 40 grams of NaOH, you can only form half the precipitate, 29 grams. There will be leftover excess magnesium ions. The amount that reacts is only half of what you put in. Half of it's still soluble, half of it made a precipitate.